welcome in today's video. Today I'm going to play with the Inktense bars and the Inktense pencils, and I hope you enjoy. So in today's video I'm going to play around with the Inktense pencils and the Inktense blocks for the first time. I heard a lot of good things about them. People seem to have a lot of fun with them, so I'm really curious how my findings will be, but they do look promising. This is the inside of the 72 Inktense tin pencils. I love this color of blue, it's so pretty. Anyway, this is the first layer with the yellow, oranges, purples and blues, and the second layer with the greens and the earth tones. And each pencil has the Derwent brand on it, Inktense, and then a little brush sign that it is water soluble, and of course the color name and its corresponding number. And the ends are also marked with the color it should be. I really like the color selection in these tins. I mean, those greens and the earth tones, they look delicious, as well as all the purples and blues. Those really, oh, they make me happy. So those are the pencils. And then we have the Inktense blocks, which should be pretty much the same colors. If I compare the two of them, well, instead this one does have a, let's see, it's in the other layer, an extra pencil that isn't actually an Inktense pencil, but it's the outliner, which you can use to draw outlines with, and it's not water soluble, so it shouldn't wash out. But yeah, I don't know. I usually prefer to use either a colored pencil or a brush pen or a fine liner pen to do the outlinings with. But it's there, so it's an option. And this is the tin with the Inktense blocks, also 72 colors. The first layer, again, some yellows, reds, purples and blues, and some nice handy mixing wells in there. And then the second layer are the greens and the earth tones again, and some more mixing wells, because these blocks you can actually use to go draw on paper with, but you can also use them as pens. You can wet them just from the block, and that way you can mix them together. Like for instance with this kind of green. And then you can mix your own custom colors. So you've got 72 colors, but you have even more choice laying around to make your own custom mixes. And then here you go. We have, I'm just using a crappy sketchbook thingy that I got. So yeah, you can use them that way, or you can use them like a crayon if I can get them out. You can use them this way, and then dilute them this way. But I prefer to use them from the block, just straight with a wet brush on the block, because as you can see, when you use the crayon on the paper, it leaves marks behind. You can't totally get it away somehow. And if you use them straight from the block, you're going to get a much more cleaner and smoother result. And the pencils, they pretty much work the same way. You can apply them dry and then wet them later with a brush, and then they dilute. But also the pencils do, like the blocks, leave marks behind underneath. Or you can use them like this, you just wet the tip. Some people, they worry about the wood, getting a wet brush on the pencil affects the wood, but so far I had no problems doing this. But as you can see, you can get a much nicer lay down this way without any marks underneath. But of course pencils, they're more, at least I would like to use them more for the finer details and stuff, and then the bigger, to fill in bigger areas, I'd use the blocks. On the blocks there's again the Derwent and then Inktense and the color number. About the light fastness. Apparently the pencils as well as the blocks are not totally light fast. They will fade in time, though it is said that the blocks are more light fast than the pencils are, but not once they're diluted. So if you create any artwork with these, just like any other medium that fades, such as dye-based watercolors and alcohol markers, these products are good for illustration making or print making, but not for any art gallery, museum quality artwork or stuff that you want to sell to people. Artwork I create with materials that are not light fast, I'd like to keep in maps or in portfolio books. So that's a bit of a bummer, but oh well. So apparently once you've laid these down and they've dried, they will not reactivate, unlike watercolor. So you're going to be able to do many glazes with them, and I heard the white is super opaque, so that should be interesting. So yeah, I'm really excited to try these out and to see what I can do with them. And well, hopefully I don't mess it up. So yeah, let's get on with it. Before I start painting, I masked off the sketch with the frisket film and sealed the edges with the Molotow masking fluid marker to make sure none of the paint works their way in through the edges of the frisket film, but also to mask some of the smaller details like strands of hair and whiskers. This would be taking all day to do with the frisket film. That film is only really handy to mask down a really large area all at once, so you don't have to waste a lot of masking fluid. By combining them this way, you can use the best of both worlds. The initial sketch I did on a separate cheap piece of paper and transferred over with Saral graphite transfer paper. Now I am blocking in the background, and I am using the Inktense blocks for this. I use a wet brush to pick up the paint straight from the blocks, pretty much how you would pick up your paint from a watercolor pen. I wet my paper before I went in with the paint, or ink, whichever you want to call these. They flow really well and did remind me of watercolor until I went over the first dry layer and discovered the first layer became permanent and would not reactivate, which gives you the option to glaze to your heart's content and add as many layers as you want without getting mud in the end. So you're able to get as vivid or as dark with your colors as you'd like. I chose to go with a green background because it would stand in nice contrast to the red fur of the dog. Now that I'm happy with the values of the background, I move on to the dog. I start by blocking in the darkest shadows with a sepia-ish color, which was very close to black. Since you can layer with these, it is not a problem to start with your darkest values. It helped me to sculpt the features and the shapes in the dog's face and to decide where the highlights are going to be. With later glazes you can always adjust the color anyway, which makes the Inktense medium a very forgiving medium in my opinion. Oh, and I have used a reference photo from Paint My Photo website. I will post the source link in the description if you want to look it up. The brushes that I'm using are Chinese brushes. Ever since I got these, I've gone totally nuts over them and hardly use any other brushes anymore when I'm working with water-soluble media. I just love them that much. Most have a round belly that can hold a lot of water and paint, but the tip is very fine and holds a sharp point very well. They work both great for broad washes and filling large areas, but they are also amazing for finer detail work. So yes, these brushes are my must-have and I can't do without them anymore. Also, they are often much more cheaper than high-end watercolor brushes. At this point I layered a yellow and orange glaze on top of the first shadow layer, and these two colors made the shadow areas much warmer. So now I glaze a blue on top of the shadow parts to get a better contrast so that they stand out more against the highlight areas. I also noticed how some of the lighter colors are super opaque, such as the blue. It dried up in a very strong vivid opaque color, which gave a nice effect next to the orange hues. I really loved how much you can layer with these Inktense and build up some real amazing rich colors. They were much more fun than I initially thought they would be. So far I have only been using the blocks, but now that I got most of my colors built up and everything blocked in, it's time to get the companion Inktense pencils out for the finer work. I started by adding a dark color on the nose. Now I use the pencil on the paper, dry instead, and wet it afterwards. It doesn't matter now that I got a bit of grainy marks from the dry pencil. With the layers underneath they aren't as obvious, and they add a nice kind of subtle texture to the piece this way. Then I added a cooler red glaze from an Inktense block to further enrich the colors and make the dog a bit less yellow-orange. Now I was finally happy with the overall values, so it was time to start with the final stage of this painting, the details. Of course I could have called it finished here and go for a looser painterly look, but I wanted to try and bring a bit more realism in there by adding fur texture. I am using the white Inktense pencil to draw out the individual hairs, which will make him or her look a bit softer at the same time. Always pay attention to the direction you draw your hair in. If they are all super straight and all go in the same way, you'll end up with a very flat and unnatural looking kind of fur, and you don't want that. A lot of times it helps to draw the fur the direction the shapes of the muscles are flowing in. And of course it helps to have references at hand. I don't put the white fur details everywhere and leave some spots open. This will add to the realism and helps to balance out the overall picture. I just put enough hairs in there to create a suggestion of soft fur and also to enhance the highlights. Also I enhanced the darker parts the same way with a dark blue pencil and hype up the reds with the orange and the red pencil at the very end. I keep adding little by little until I feel all the values and details are right. Also in this final stage I don't wet anything anymore, so I'm leaving the final details dry. Lastly, I use a liner brush to draw in the whiskers and the final highlights in the fur with ink from the white Inktense block. And boy, that white is really opaque. So yes, I totally enjoyed working with both the Inktense blocks and pencils. They really surprised me and I will surely use them again a whole lot more in the future. The possibilities they offer with the endless layering, it just gets you all excited. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you did and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you don't want to miss out on any of my future videos. If you have any suggestions for future videos, or have questions, or just want to stop and say hi, then leave a comment below. So thank you for watching, and hopefully I see you in the next video. Have a good one.